Hey everyone, I'm Sarah Tuttle Singer from the Times of Israel community, and I'm so excited to tell you about this project we're doing with Shacharit, an Israeli think tank and nonprofit. Now, Israeli politics and society are too often seen through the limited frame of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or the religious-secular conflict. Even President Ruvi Rivlin's description of Israel as being made up of four tribes, the Arabs, the religious Zionists, the Haredim, and the secular, is still an incomplete picture. Israeli society is made up of a diverse tapestry of identities, each with distinct worldviews, histories, and narratives. In order to understand Israeli society and politics, and in order to have an impact on what goes on in Israel, and in order to properly communicate about Israel in the diaspora, it really helps to understand these identity groups, the conflicts between them, and what must be done to build bridges. So please join us for this 5-part learning series with leaders and activists from 5 of Israel's major identities that are working towards building new social partnerships across all of Israel's diverse communities. Thank you so much, and now over to our hosts at Shacharit.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jake Shapiro. I work here at the Shacharit Institute in Tel Aviv. Shacharit is a synergistic mix of think tank, leadership incubator, and community organizing hub that is nurturing a new social partnership among all of Israel's communities, building a future rooted in the common good. I'm joined here today by 3 amazing speakers. Miri Shalem is a religious Zionist woman and Shacharit 120 program graduate. She formerly ran the Institute for Zionist Strategies and is the director of the new Beit Shemesh Cultural Performance Hall. Laura Talanovsky is a Russian-speaking activist, Shacharit's COO, and graduate of Shacharit's 120 program. Laura was most recently the head of the Rabin Preparatory Academy Mechina in Haifa, was previously the executive director of the One Voice Peace Initiative and the parliamentary advisor for Knesset opposition leader Sheli Yachimovich. I'm joined by our moderator today, Natalie Levy. Natalie is a PhD student in sociology at Tel Aviv University and a social activist. Natalie is the head of Shacharit's Intellectual Fellows Program. She holds a BA in Teaching Certificate in Political Science and an MA in Sociology and Anthropology. Thank you all for joining, and I'll pass it off now to Natalie.
Thank you, Jake, and hello, Laura and Miri. I'm very happy to be with you today. So we're going to get into things quickly, and I would like to hear from you. When did you first develop a feminist identity? So can we start with you, Miri?
Yeah, so I actually didn't know that I'm feminist at all. I just grew up in a house that I was the oldest daughter within we were, at the beginning, we were 3 daughters. Then I had 2 more, a sister and brother, but they are much younger than me. So I grew up in a house of women only. And my father, who he passed away 4 months ago, but he was the professor at the university. And I think he put all his ambitions, he put on us as girls. So I didn't have boys in the house, so to compare to another gender. And I went to a boarding school that was a girls only school. So I grew up most of the time with girls only in the family at the school. So I didn't know that I'm not equal to somebody else. I think when I was asked to think about the questions, I think that the first time I understood it, it was in the university when I started dating with the boys, and I met some girls that were very, very, educated and high-level girls, but they said, I need to find somebody that is, very wealthy. I need to find somebody that is very successful, and I didn't have it. It wasn't my method, so I understood that I'm a bit different. I thought I'm enough capable to do things myself. I didn't need somebody to lean on. So I think this is the first time I understood that I'm a feminist.
Laura, what about you?
So I don't think I have a specific moment that I can say this is the moment that I realized that I'm a feminist. I grew up in a house that is very I'm a Russian speaking. I came to Israel from the former Soviet Union, and my house is very patriarchal in that way, that my father does absolutely nothing in the house and my mother does everything. But in a way, when I grew up, my mother is like the strong person of the house. So both me and my brother, we really became active. Like when you see my brother today, when he's a father already, like he's cleaning his house all the time. He's cooking. He's like doing all the work in the house. And I'm sure it came from my mother. Like somehow we grew up in this kind of house, but we like took a different example from it. Like for me, my mother is a superhero. Like she can do everything because I literally saw her doing everything when I grew up. So, but you know, still it's like a very like chauvinistic house. I think it's very like Soviet thing, but like we need to understand that in the way it was in the Soviet Union, like women were completely equal to men in the public sphere. Like they could work in any position, and like in my family and among my parents' friends, you have women who are like structure engineers, or like, you know, professions that in Israel are very much like masculine or identified with men. But for like Russian women, it's like completely normal that you are doing this kind of jobs, but still in the private sphere inside the house. So this division, this gender division is like very stiff. So I think like you need to understand the Russian feminism and Russian chauvinism. It's like kind of different. I think in Israel, the way you think about chauvinism, it's like involving like traditional and maybe like religious things, but like for Russian speaking, like they're completely secular, but the house is like so chauvinistic, like you cannot believe it. So you know, it has like different forms. Like you really need to see this. When I studied in university, I studied in Jerusalem in Hebrew University, and I studied sociology. So I studied to get to know like feminist theories, and like I became very angry feminist at first, because like when you study sociology, you get these glasses that you put on your eyes, and it's very hard to take them off. I don't want to take them off. Like it's a really good glasses, but the way you start to see the world, it's like in a very conflictual way when you see like power dynamics all the time between groups. And I started through the gender lenses. And when I came back to my house for like, I spent all the week in Jerusalem, and then on the weekends I used to come to my house, and like I used to see this way my parents lived their lives the whole time in such an unjust way that I kind of got a lion. Can you say that? I think I kind of got a lion from my parents at the time, because like I saw in their house and their dynamic, like all this injustice that I studied about in theories. And it actually took me a while to like walk back into my parents' house and like be more like forgiven towards what I see, and to understand that their dynamics is like something that, you know, it's an accumulative thing that happens through all the years and all the bills they have among each other. And I cannot look at it with this kind of perspective. That's like, it's not fair, not to them and not to me.
Okay, so both of you come from very different backgrounds. Miri comes from a religious background and Laura from a very secular one. Miri, what does it mean to be a religious feminist? Do you see any tension between these two identities?
First of all, I need to add another identity, which I know you spoke about it in a different conversation. I'm not only religious, I'm not only feminist, I'm also like a Mizrahi, that I came from, you know, my parents are immigrants from North Africa. And it means a lot within this whole world. I don't know what is my main identity, but it's all combined together, and I can't separate it actually. For example, if sometimes I can see a struggle of feminist women, but if it's only like Ashkenazi women, I won't feel a part of it, because I'm a Mizrahi woman. So, you know, I need to find a good place to bring myself out in order to feel that struggles and fights are my struggles also. Okay, and I don't know if there is a tension between these words, between the like you know, being feminist and being religious. I think it really it has a mutual influence. It is certainly connected. The fact, the place of women in the Judaism vs the place of women in the secular world, or the workplace, or things like that. I was part of a board of a religious Orthodox feminist called Kolech, okay? I was part of it, and Kolech is one of the organization of religious feminists that deal with the need of making women in the religious world equal. It takes the battles, the fights there are surrounding many issues, like the place of women in the shul. Okay, if it's equal place, or only the men only gives the ceremonies, and they take the ceremonies, lead the ceremonies at shul. Okay. The place of women in the rabbinic world. If you are a rabbinic person, if you are a woman, sometimes you don't have a place to really to bring yourself out. So if positions for women in the halachic world, I said equal shuls, equality in the religious world. I wrote it. I can't bring more examples now, but sometimes I'm a religious feminist, but I don't always find myself within this world of religious feminism. Okay, I won't fight for it. Maybe it's because the fact that I live in ultra-Orthodox neighborhoods, so sometimes I know that I have limitations here in my surrounding here. Okay, I don't have the ability to create here equal davening, equal shul here in my neighborhood. Okay, but for example, now when my dad, I told you, he passed away 4 months ago, and I feel like lucky that I have a little brother that is saying Kaddish over him at shul. I don't have a place to do it, so this is maybe a place that I can feel the need to be equal, to go to shul, and I know that it is also a fight of the religious feminism here in Israel, that women will be able to say Kaddish in shul, that they will be counted to a minyan, to be part of 10 people, that if you they can be the one that say Kaddish during the davening at shuls. Okay, so this is a example of place that I would like to take part of it, to like say Kaddish at shul, but I'm not a part of the big picture of religious feminists here in Israel. I think this is the Mizrahi identity of me. I feel that I feel like as a Mizrahi woman, I don't always have the need to really express myself, to make changes in the religious world, but I'm really supportive of this fight that other women, other feminist religious women are doing, because I think it really influences the more the position of religious women will be like in the religious world will be down, won't have equality. It influences the other world, the like secular world, the work world, that has less equality in it. It influences it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen a lot of changes going on regarding the status of women in the religious world, both in the Haredi community around you and also in the...
Yeah, so I as I said, I live in an ultra-Orthodox neighborhood, and I established a women council here in my city. It was like 6 years ago. It was 12 years ago. We were active for 6 years, and we had lots of ultra-Orthodox women, and I'm following other ultra-Orthodox women from all over Israel. And I think I always said that, you know, first of all, they are really feminist, okay? Because in their world, they are doing everything. If the normal world, the position of the man is growing because of his his education and because of his ability to bring salary home. So this is irrelevant for them because they are the educated and they bring the salary, and they also bring children, and they usually bring a lot of children. And I knew that, you know, this bubble can't avoid from being exploded. Like if all the power, they really hold all the power in their hand with the education and then being able to get a salary and giving birth and you know, looking great and being perfect out all the time. So it really, you see, everything is exploding. Actually, there are movements of them trying to get equality and being elected to the Knesset and in the politics areas and in you know. And I think a great change will happen from them. So it's only the beginning of their, you know, influencing their world and other worlds. And also one sentence, I don't think that, you know, I think this is a great thing that you know, we studied at Shacharit. Okay, you can have your own beliefs and you can hold your identity or your identities, your multiple identities, okay? But you can't tell others what they need to do, okay? I can't tell the Haredi woman what to do. I can't tell Laura what to do because everyone has his own word, and everyone is you know, has the legitimacy to fight for his own word. I can't fight for others. They can fight for me. This is we are all a structure of lots of identities, but everyone has the ability and right to fight for himself and his group and represent his group only.
I think it's very interesting that you're saying that sometimes when you encounter a contradiction between your feminist and your religious identity, you choose the more pragmatic way, which you relate to your Mizrahi identity.
Yeah.
That sometimes, that not all battles are worth to fight for at a certain point of time and place. So I think it's an interesting...
and you don't always want to do it. It's like something, when you have a battle, when you fight for something, it's something that comes from your inside. You feel like you have to do it. And maybe the Mizrahi identity, you know, tell me that I don't have to fight, and maybe some other that are it really comes from their own, you know, stomach will fight for it. I will enjoy it, but I won't fight for it.
Yes, I think it makes you think.
Yeah.
Laura, Miri grew up in a very religious world and formed her feminist identity in this context. When you first started working closely with religious people in the Knesset or in 120, how did your feminist views shape your interactions?
Okay, so maybe I should start with the beginning, with like my first experience with religious people. When we came to Israel from the former Soviet Union, we went to a settlement, actually. Like my parents went to an ulpan to study Hebrew, and they had like a Shabbat where like religious families are hosting like Olim families. So when I was 6 years old, we went to a settlement called Mevachoron for a Shabbat. And we met two amazing families. One, we were there on Friday, the other one, we were there on Saturday. And those two families, we became such a good connection that for so many years, like they became almost my family. They like almost my uncles and aunties. So I spent so much of my childhood, like every summer, they used to like send me and my brother to this place. It was like a vacation in the village for the summer. So, and like we used to do Shabbats over there and some of the holidays for like several years. So like, I think our first decade in Israel, it's like every week or two, or maybe every month, like we go to Mevachoron and like we're doing their like, you know, Jewish life. So it was like so much to me because I think a lot of Russian speaking people came to Israel with so little like Jewish knowledge, but like a lot of Jewish pride and a lot of Jewish identity. But like, it really helped us to fill it in with content. So I think of myself as a person who like kind of grew up with a religious branch in the family, although they were not really my family, but they like almost were. And like when I grew up and I like started to realize like the sociology in Israel and that like secular people are kind of hostile to religious people and the other way around, like I didn't really understand this function for a very long time. Like I think for the first time in high school, well, like I heard people like speaking bad things about religious people. It was probably the first time in my surrounding that I heard it. So I never looked at it as a sort of conflict. I never thought of religious women as more oppressed than me. Like I saw religious women who are like, man, they're like so impressive. So I never thought of them as like something, as like a different object maybe than, you know, the women in my family and maybe my mother. So when I grew up, it was like, that was like kind of my intuition. But then of course there's politics and of course there's sociology and we have different views. Like the way I think about feminism and women's rights is not women's rights. So it's not the way that religious people think about it. And I had conflict point with it. I grew up in Givat Shmuel, which is very close to Bnei Brak, which is a Haredi city. So when I studied in Jerusalem and I used to go to and from Jerusalem, I used a bus that is directly going from Bnei Brak to Jerusalem, like from one ultra-Orthodox spot to another. And when I was about 22, the separation in the buses started. It started at the beginning of the 2000 years. So like, I think like 16 years ago. So I used to take buses and sit wherever I want. And then in a year or two, it's like, it became different. Like I had to go all the way to the back and I became really angry about it. And when it started also in like city lines inside Jerusalem, I found myself being a part of a struggle that was led mostly by secular women and some were religious, but not Haredi. Like the Haredi women could not take the front in this kind of battle, but like we organized demonstrations in Jerusalem against separation that also started in buses, but then it like leaked to other places. So I definitely was like, you know, in the front line of a conflict issue. And I don't think still like that we find a good answer for that. But as I grew up, I'm more willing to acknowledge like complexities. Like I could hear like Haredi women saying, you know, this is my will. This is what I want. This is good for me. Like gender separation is the way I live my life. And if it's now starting in a bus, then like some of the women were against it, but also some of the women were pro separation. So something in in the way I see things is definitely became more complex. And I can say that when I participated in the 120 program of Shacharit, I met Haredi men that they were feminists. That's actually like, I don't know if they're ever going to use this word, but they were like more feminists than me. They were like so upset about the inequality inside the Haredi community for women. And they thought women should like study Talmud, like the holy books, and they should teach like things from the holy books. And they were like I never met this kind of man. So it really like changed a lot in my perspective to know that there are also like, you know, allies or people who are holding this perspective inside the Haredi community. And I can also say that I worked in the Knesset with Sheli Yachimovich. She was the head of the opposition and the head of the Labour Party. So for 3 years, I was her parliamentary advisor. And she's like, you know, in Israel, she may be like the poster of feminism. Like she did feminism in the 80s when nobody wanted to touch these issues, you know, from distance. And I learned so much about her. Like she's a person that has an iron back, if you can say that. Like she doesn't bend in front of anyone. But her best partners in the Knesset were like always partners from across the board. Like she always worked with Haredi MKs, she always worked with religious MKs, and like she always worked with people from the right wing. She was from the left wing. And like I learned so much that you can use your power, but you can actually like amplify it and multiply it if you have partners from across the board. So like all those milestones taught me a lot about like how feminism can be translated to reality, because it's not a theory. Like I'm not going to get 100% of what I want, and in my feminism. And also, like, I still have so much to learn from people who are more conservative than me. Like, it's not that my feminism is the answer to everything. Like, people have different perspectives, and I should be modest with my feminist. I should be modest, and I should learn from conservative women and conservative men. And like, I don't have all the answers, so this is basically what I learned.
Interesting. So you're also mentioning the fact that, you know, your family, in a way, as a Russian family, broke this stereotype of being like anti-religion, which is something that is rooted in you. I mean, the fact that you were exposed to a completely different way of living in Israel is something quite rare. Most religious or secular people do not see this other way of living and respect it. We learn to distance ourselves and to feel superior on this way of living. I guess it kind of gets into the way you think about society in general and how you see yourself and others. So
yeah, absolutely. Like, I see, like, Judaism is so important to me. Like, I'm not religious in the way of halakha, but I have a lot of tradition in my life. Like, I wouldn't say that I'm traditional, because like, I don't keep halakha in you know, in so many ways, but I always have Kabbalat Shabbat, and like, it's very important for me that my kids would be a part of it. And when I see like secular people saying that there is like hadatat, that things becoming more religious, like, I really like, I don't like this kind of struggle. I don't think that they are being like, that they are fond enough of Judaism, that they love their Judaism. I feel that they're hostile towards something in their identity, because
yeah, I think that you describe, you know, the fact that liberal way of thinking educate us to see the situation in a very dichotomic way in religion. Like, men are superior, women are inferior, and both of you describe a situation where you see different kinds of strength and power inside this world that makes it more complex, and therefore the dealing with certain issues and inequalities is done in a more complex way. So I think both of you described also a very pragmatic approach, which is interesting. Miri, did your experience in the 120 program affect your views, relationships, or activism related to feminism?
First of all, when I was at the 120 program, I live in Bet Shemesh for 25 years already, and Bet Shemesh is considered to be one of the most interesting, controversial cities in Israel. I really wanted to try the method of the mutual good, the Tov Meshutaf, to bring it, to try it in Bet Shemesh, like to say, here we have, you know, lots of populations, Haredi, Anglo people that came from English-speaking countries, modern Orthodox, Ethiopians, Russians, traditional people, Mizrahi people. Like, we have all the Israeli society within the city, and the tendency of the city is becoming more and more religious. I thought that we can be a good lab to try to bring the discourse of Shacharit into Bet Shemesh. I think a few years ago, it sounded crazy, because it seems like Bet Shemesh is going to a very bad place. Fortunately, 1.5 years ago, a miracle happened here, and we have a new mayor here in Bet Shemesh, which she beat all the statistics. Okay, she's a woman. She's a modern Orthodox. She's not ultra-Orthodox, despite of the fact that the city is becoming very, very religious and ultra-Orthodox. She had no party, no big party behind her. She tried to be elected after, like 5 years before she tried to get elected. we had a chance of, you know, of trying to take the mayoral system from the ultra-Orthodox mayor that we had here, and we failed. So she came after a huge failure of attempting to make a change here, or attemptions. But she succeeded. It was a miracle. And actually, Aliza is speaking the language of Shacharit, okay? She is a mayor that she really speaks. She says Tov Meshutaf, mutual good all the time. I think this is how we say Tov Meshutaf in English?
Common good.
Common good, okay. So, now when I'm the new head of the concert cultural hall in Bet Shemesh, it's a huge event that we are going to open it. Unfortunately, it's a Corona days, so you know I'm waiting till the building will be open, but I'm waiting till the Corona will be over also. So it's two parallel processes that are happening at the same time. I have the chance to work with her and to bring into a culture. It's a great place to bring the language of common good inside. I have to bring a stage for everyone. I have to, that everyone will have the ability to feel that this is his home. I find out lots of artists and musicians here in my city, because the city was growing so fast. So lots of new population came in the recent years, like the city almost multiplied itself in the recent years. And I like every stone that I open, like I find lots of talents here in the city. I found an ultra-Orthodox Black rap singer that like a converted, he converted his from the USA. He lives here. I find lots of talent, and this is a place to do a lab of bringing the common good inside it. And I think I want to say that I think that this method of Shacharit can touch everyone. This is what I'm doing today. But 2 months ago, I was the head of the Institute for Zionist Strategies for almost 6 years. And we were a Zionist national organization, and we choose to work in East Jerusalem and to work with the population in East Jerusalem and to work with the Palestinians at the checkpoints. It's weird combination of being able to work with Palestinians out of being a Zionist and pro like a national and with national ideas, okay? And I worked with mainly with women, because we had 14 classes in East Jerusalem teaching women how to speak Hebrew, okay? So I think that no matter what you do in your life, I left East Jerusalem, I came back to Bet Shemesh. I also will deal with women. I will also try to implement the language of the common good, because this language is good for every, no matter where you are. It doesn't matter if you live in Haifa, you live in Bet Shemesh, you work in East Jerusalem, you work with the Bedouin at the Negev. I think this is a language that if you adopt it, no matter where you are, it can apply to every place that you are if you believe in it, okay?
Miri, continuing to talk about the Institute for Zionist Strategies, the organization, from what I understand, is dedicated to advancing Israel as both Jewish and democratic, speaking a language of human and individual rights while also maintaining traditions.
Yeah.
So when you spoke about some of these feminist struggles, and you know, sometimes you feel that it's not the right time or the place to intervene. But for Israel, you know, some of these conflicts, they spill out into the public square, and we can't really avoid them. So one example is of Women of the Wall, who, you know, to read the Torah in the Kotel. And this is an example when it's, you know, the most striking situation of one group trying to show their personal rights to read the Torah, and another group who's, you know, claims that they're defending their traditions and their history. So how do you think that we can manage these tensions, especially in the public square, between individual rights, especially related to feminism, while still respecting tradition and Jewish history?
You touched an issue that is considered to me to be under the umbrella of tension between religion and state, okay? At the Institute for Zionist Strategies, we dealt a lot with this tension between religion and state. We were part of our dealing well with the field work, working outside of the institute, like teaching Hebrew in East Jerusalem. But part of it, we were a think tank, so we wrote lots of researches about this tension and trying to find these solutions. In another aspect, I used to be a fighter here in my city against gender segregation in the public sphere. As Laura said, buses. Laura mentioned buses, but we had lots of signs against how women should be wearing their clothing in the public sphere. I will say something that it might be, not very popular. I think that this tension between religion and state is here to stay, because this is part of it. This is part of, like, I think it's like a field that will be all the times in tension, no matter what will this basket, no matter what will be inside. Sometimes it's the woman of the wall, the position of the Western wall, and the conflict between the Jews in the world, like the Jews in the state, and their need to have a place for conservative and reform in the Western world. Sometimes it's the position of the public transportation on Shabbat. Sometimes it's the position of the shopping malls being open on Shabbat. Sometimes it's the position of the conversion, who is considered to be Jew. And I think maybe it's a weird way to think, but I think it's here to stay. In this basket, sometimes things will go out and inside and outside of the basket, but it's a basket that, now no one actually is talking about this conflict between religion and state. Well, I think now we have lots of other issues to deal with: the economic situation, the COVID-19. We have a mess here. When we have a mess, the conflict between religion and state is being spent to sleep for a while. But when you have nothing to deal with, and so okay, let's again fight over it in the Knesset. I don't think that the Knesset, the Parliament, maybe represents the common people in the world. Not the people in the world don't go to sleep every day thinking about if I have a Western wall, if I have public transportation. I think it's a basket. It's a pot. It's a pot that need to be on fire all the time, and then you just have to put it low, put it high. So this is maybe during the time we will have changes, but even changes that has been done in the past don't always continue. So this is my opinion. So no, that's it.
Laura, do you agree that these issues of religion and state are here to stay? Do you see strategies that we can use to address this?
Oh, wow, it's a big question. First of all, yeah, I think it's here to stay, because you have religious, you have seculars, you have traditional people, so all kinds of streams in the Israeli society, and of course, each of them is going to bring their own voice. I really think that in some places like Bet Shemesh, when you have like the ultra-Orthodox extremists are trying to take over public sphere, a lot of the times the people who suffer are not the secular, but actually the traditional ones, because they share cities with like Haredi people, and then you can see it like also in Bet Shemesh and in Tveria, and then like the struggle is not from like secular people who don't want to see religion. So it's like coming from religious people, but like they see in Judaism something else, and they see it in a more moderate way. So many times you see the struggles between moderate and like extreme. And I also think most of the Haredi people are moderate. Like we should also say that like the powers there who are extremists are also like a minority. So it's like very important to hear in every group, like to hear a lot of voices, like never take one person who is like representative. It doesn't work that way. In every group, you have to see the deep diversity. We call it in Shachari deep diversity, because you have to hear several voices from each group. I think Israeli society, like, yeah, it's going to be an internal issue, and like each side has to understand that they're not going to get all the cake. Like everybody's going to have to compromise on some of their values. And that is including me as a feminist. Like I realize that I don't want to compromise, but I do understand that I'm not going to like everything that I see, but like we're going to have to find the recipe.
Thinking about folks in the United States and other parts of the diaspora who have a more liberal framework, they are thinking about what's happening at the Kotel and about the mixed prayers and reading the Torah. And for them, you know, they want to feel connected to an Israel that they can understand and that makes sense for them. And for them, maybe it's not an acceptable answer to say, we're just going to give this up. So what would you say to somebody living in the diaspora who really cares about these issues? Like, should they just accept it because Israel is like this? You know, is there something that they can do to be a part of this struggle in a way that makes sense inside the context?
In what when I prepared to this conversation, I wrote that one of the big changes that taught me that there is another possibility for Judaism was like 17 years ago when I first I visited the States in a delegation that went to meet with the communities, and I saw the possibility of other Judaism. I think that there is a great focus now over this diaspora thing. Actually, the diaspora minister is my neighbor. Okay, Minister Omer Yankelevich lives here in the neighborhood, and I think there is a great focus on it. There are there are lots of delegations. There are lots of attempts of bringing the diaspora world into the Israeli society, because sometimes we have here the tendency to focus in our troubles only. We are the poor people. We have the wars. We have the fights. We have these gaps here in the society, and we don't see them. But I see now. I can say that there is a change. There are journalists in Makor Rishon. I used to write for Makor Rishon for several years. There is a journalist, his name is Tzvika Klein. He all the times he brings the diaspora into us. He interviews people. So I think there is a change. I think there is a tendency, because of more dealing with it. There is a possibility that the Israeli society will see the diaspora, will understand that it's not us, it's not us and them. We are all together. I think maybe the coronavirus also explained it more than ever, that we are all in this this mess together. And again, I know it's very expensive, but birthright is only one side. The Americans are coming here. Maybe there should be birthright to the other side, and that more people will visit Jewish communities and see other Judaism. For me, I think one of the I won't say breaking points, but one of the changes for me in my life was when I saw another Judaism that is I felt is fantastic. So maybe this is the
And we're actually in Shacharit, we're bringing every year a group of 15 key religious Zionist leaders to the United States, in addition to having them meet different communities around Israel. And one of the participants last year was the CEO of Makor Rishon, Moriah Shalom.
Ken.
And just now they've had their first ever international diaspora conference.
Yeah, so there are conferences here, and something is happening. I feel that there are changes now. Yeah.
Miri, is there anything that you want to talk about that we haven't?
I have two things to add, if you want, about being. It's not a conflict between being a feminist and being religious, but it's like it's more like you know, the cultural way of being religious. One is the fact that lots of religious people, students, are studying in separate education most of their years until at least the age of 18. Sometimes being a woman going out of this education, out to the society, is a shock. You don't really know how to behave in a like a mixed society. Mixed, that means boys and girls, and you don't know the language. And in the Israeli society, it's very strong because the army takes lots of the you know, masculine language here. People meet, and you know, they are friends. They were. I noticed that lots of the conversation between men, no matter what their age is, they start at their history at the army. Where did you serve? What years? Who do you know from there? And for a female that came from a separate world of a religious world, combining into this world with the army, the army language, not the army, the military, yeah, that's the word, the military language, and with their you know, they have their own cultural way of talking to each other.
My brother.
So sometimes it's difficult. It's a cultural shock, moving from one world to another world. Sometimes as an Orthodox woman, you can't find yourself in this world, and you don't know how to act and to know the nuances that you need to know. And the second thing is also the fact that lots of religious people, women are being married at a young age, and they bring children at a young age, and it opens a gap of in the career world, okay, because their main focus usually at the ages between 20 and 30 is to raise family and to bring children, and sometimes it opens a gap in the career world if they didn't take sometimes you can't hold all the worlds together. You can be you know, bring 4 children at a range of 10 years and study and develop a career, and you know, invest many hours in your career outside of the house. So it comes from it starts from the fact that they are being raised religious. So this is the cultural way in the religious world, getting married young, bringing children quite immediately. So it's also, there is a gap that is being opened between the religious women and the, you know, a secular world and the workplace and the career world. So this is 2 cultural things I wanted to focus on. It's not exactly about you know, coming from the you know, from the halachic world, but it's cultural gaps.
How do you have daughters?
Yeah, so I have 3 daughters, 1 son. And
how do you raise your daughters? I mean, in this conflicting world, and
no, I think that you know, they are holding, you know, both. And I have one. I have my 2 daughters. That my 2 oldest daughters already graduated. You know, a university. One graduated her master's degree also. And so one of them, the oldest, is secular, and she lives in Tel Aviv, and she lives with her you know, fiance, and she's developing a career. Her whole world is focusing on career. The second is younger than her, and she married. She graduated her her bachelor degree already, but she also had a baby 1 month ago. But I feel she's now more focused on how to combine the fact that she needs to take her son out of the kindergarten, how to put him inside, how to find the work that will match her time. So I see this conflict within them. So I think this is.
I think it's also in the secular world. Only it happens maybe a bit later in life, but.
Yeah, but then you have a chance to develop a career. I think you develop a career earlier, and you put your family to an older age, so you started already your life in the career world.
Yeah, I think maybe in the secular world, the cultural expectation is also that you can look for yourself and take your time. So sometimes. Yeah, it's conflicting as well.
I have a notion about raising kids in a feminist way, whatever that means. So I have a daughter who's 6 years old and a boy who's 3.5. So we for the girl, we keep telling her that she's strong and she can do everything, right? And the boy, so we tell him that he's sensitive. We don't use the gender stereotype word. And ever since he was born, people see that he's a boy and they tell him, oh, gever, that's a man in Hebrew, right? It's also a word to give a compliment. It's a way to give a compliment in Hebrew. So people sometimes use it, and it made me laugh. And so I keep telling him that I don't use the word strong, and I don't give him compliments for that, but I keep telling him that he has a good heart, that he's sensitive, that he's cute. And I bought him a lot of pink clothes. He still doesn't pick his own clothes, and I don't think he really understands the things with color, with gendered colors. So he still wears a lot of pink. And I started to do it ever since he was a newborn. At first, I just took the clothes of his sister and I used it. It wasn't a political ideology that I had. And then people kind of shocked. So I saw the reactions for a boy wearing pink. And it made me laugh so much that ever since I started to buy clothes for him that are in pink color, and I'm going to continue to do it until he will get his own sense of what it means. But I wanted to say that the way I raised them, it's a complete failure. They are so gendered. I have a girly girl. All she cares about is clothes and unicorns and all this shit. And my boy is into tractors, and he wants to beat everyone. He's screaming. He's playing with the ball. So that's it. I'm a feminist failure, and I hope that they will grow up in a better way.
You're not a failure.
Not yet.
Thank you all so much for participating. It's a really enjoyable conversation, and I'm sure there was going to be a lot of questions and a lot of discussion around this, both in Israel and abroad. So,
תודה רבה, Jake, Laura, Natalie, תודה. Bye.
Thank you so much.
thank you guys.
See you soon. Bye. Bye.